Hi guys, how you doing? In this video, I'm just going to go over the hip flexor setup with you. And a session has just finished, and one of the girls, Emma, towards the end, was saying she wasn't really sure she was doing it right, and it actually covered one of the main things. What we're discussing was one of the main things I wanted to go over in the video. So I've included a wee video to cover at the end, sort of doing it the sort of way that most folk will do it to begin with versus what we want you to try and aim for. So a hip flexor setup, ultimately, this is an exercise that is, the clue's in the name, you're performing a sort of sit-up movement, but you're going to be targeting your hip flexor, so the big muscle right down into the quad here, that works right up into your hip. So the subtle difference, so that what I'm wanting for you to be aware of, is that when you're doing a hip flexor sit-up, the main difference is we want you to focus on keeping your spine nice and long. Okay, so in a regular sit-up, you would flex your spine like this, and you would sort of come up and down with a sort of ab crunch type movement, which is absolutely fine. That's how you target your abs. But the hip flexor sit-up, we're trying to target the hip flexor as the prime mover of the movement, and the ab muscles are a secondary muscle group that are working to stabilise your spine more than they are to flex your spine. So what I want you to really think about is start off with your chest up, as opposed to sinking down. If you sink down into this sort of default sit-up position, your abdominal muscles are going to sort of contribute a lot more than what we want to, and you won't feel it quite the same. You'll feel it in your abs, but we're trying to target the hips. So I want you to think about really sitting up, and then from there, all you're going to do is slowly start to come back, okay? As you come back though, like I said, I want you to try and concentrate on keeping your hips or your spine nice and long, so that the hip flexor here is what's controlling the movement. What you might find is your abs and your stomach shakes a little bit because it's working so hard to stabilise you as you come back. So resist the urge to sort of round through the shoulders and like this. This is suddenly an ab sit up again, which is what we're trying to keep away from. So that's the main thing about this, the hip flexor setup, because in terms of the setup, there's not much you need to know beyond that. The main thing is you want your knee about 90 degrees when you anchor it under the kettlebell. If you put it, won't slide away that. If you put it further away, it's easier. Okay, so you won't feel it as much. It won't be quite as effective. So you can start off with the kettlebell a little bit further away if you want. Just be aware as well, obviously different people at different heights will be using the kettlebell, so adjust it based on your height so that when you put your foot under it, your knee is going to be roughly at about 90 degrees here. So instead of just going back the way you normally would if you're doing a sit-up, I want you to sit up, literally sit up so that you've got a nice extended spine, okay? And then you're going to go back. And I want you to really concentrate on keeping your spine extended. You need to make sure your bum's not too far back, otherwise it's going to fall off. So try your best to keep your chest open and your spine extended so that you'll feel it right in here, and then your ab muscles will sort of work as secondary stabilizers, okay? You can obviously go back as far as you can. If your lower back starts to get sore, then it just means you're going a bit too far back for what you're ready for. So the progression as you get stronger would be to increase your range. But initially, that's the main thing to think about. Sitting up nice and tall, resist. It's a subtle thing. It's a wee subtle. It can be as small as a wee shoulder movement from there to there. So we want you to sit like this as opposed to this, and then maintain that as you go back, as opposed to that as you go back. So that's the difference between an abdominal focus setup and a hip flexor focus setup, essentially. Okay, but a great exercise for the hips, this one.